Welcome to the Dynasty Fantasy Football Show. Here's your host, Alex Klausner and Bobby Carney.
Welcome to the Dynasty Fantasy Football Show. I am your host, Alex. This is my man, Bobby. We are breaking down the action from Thursday night's clash between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. The Chiefs come out on top by just an Al Pacino game of inches. All right.
Probably less.
Probably less, right? I think Patrick Mahomes said, hey, man, wear white cleats next time to likely.
Yep.
And speaking of likely, that is going to be our first topic because I think from a dynasty impact standpoint, that is probably one of the bigger surprises of the night. So, Bobby, why don't you take us through the night that Isaiah Likely had?
Yeah, I mean, he really had, I had him actually last year in DCL for a little while. So yeah, I knew there was definitely some potential for him to be there. And we were getting to that point of is the torch going to be passed from Mark Andrews to him? Is Andrews going to kind of become tight end 2 and he's going to become tight end 1? Last night really kind of showed that could be coming. Hard for me to really say that it's here because a lot of when I was watching the game, as we get into a little bit later on, is I feel like both teams had the same game plan on defense. It was, you are not throwing the ball to Travis Kelce and you are not throwing the ball to Mark Andrews. And that's why I think we saw a little bit of the Isaiah Likely blow up. And then not necessarily Noah Gray blow up, but Noah Gray getting equal targets as Travis Kelce. It's just those two defenses were not letting those two people take over the game. But no, it was crazy really seeing that last 2-minute drive, just them feeding the ball to Likely. You would think at some point that the defense would just pivot, but I think a little bit is kind of what I said, is they were not just going to change their game plan and let's start covering Likely in a 2-minute drill, and then Mark Andrews is wide open. And it's oh my God, how do you not cover his number one favorite target in a 2-minute drill? So, but yeah, it was definitely really, I want to see a little bit more, but yeah, that could be definitely, we could be at that point now that Isaiah Likely is the tight end 1 and Mark Andrews is now becoming the tight end 2.
I think one of the things that we have to factor in also to this performance is that we've got Mark Andrews coming off that devastating injury that he suffered at the end of last season, right? And so the Ravens are sitting here looking at it okay, Andrews might have some recovery time, right? He might be out there as a decoy. And then let's not forget, we have to also add in, we're recovering from this season-ending injury. Now we got a car accident to add on top of that he was involved in, right? And so there is just no way this guy's operating at 100% right now. This is probably going to be more of maybe Mark Andrews takes 8 weeks to really boot up and we see Isaiah Likely suddenly getting funneled all of these targets. It's going to be kind of, I think, a dangerous situation for owners of both assets, really, because you don't want to overreact to one game, right? As a Mark Andrews, let's say you are the Mark Andrews owner. Are you rushing out to sell him right now?
I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. There's some of it with Dynasty and that stuff is I try to do my best to just not go too crazy into week 1. Week 1 is definitely its own animal. You got a lot more time to prep. You know your opponent for so long. Especially with these two teams, they've played a lot. Because if I remember correctly, that was the big playoff game last year, was between those two. Lamar's MVP season and then just not really showing up at the playoffs against these guys. So I'd be interested to see. I just need a little bit more sample size, but
yeah, it's really tough to say. But I mean, let's look at the numbers here, right? Now, Mark Andrews was out there for 59 of the snaps. Isaiah Likely was out there for 53 of those snaps. So Mark Andrews actually out snaps Likely, right? That said, Routes run about equal, 38 to 35 in favor of Andrews. Andrews is running more routes, but targets, 2 targets to Isaiah Likely's 12 targets. That is a huge disparity. And of course, that allows for Isaiah Likely to get all of those opportunities for production. And he delivered. He delivered 9 catches, all the yards. And not to mention, we're talking about potentially even more touchdowns. He had finished 1 on the day. He could have had 2 just by those inches, right? And that would have, I mean, this is by all accounts a breakout game for Likely and something that I think is going to establish him as a factor in this offense going forward. I think the question is what does that mean for Andrews? And this is definitely going to be, I think, just if you're an owner of either of these guys, you've got to be watching this usage and how it kind of trends going forward. I wouldn't be rushing to sell Andrews yet because there's like a case, right, that like he comes back in the middle of the season and he becomes that dominator again. And if he does, he's got a lot of value for you. He could genuinely be, you know, a tight end 1 league winning guy when he's at his best. But I don't know. When I see the injuries starting to accrue, when I see what Isaiah Likely has been able to do as a playmaker, you and I both know this is a production business, and it is about what have you done for me lately, and what are you doing for me right now, not what are you doing for me yesterday.
Yeah, and just I know I was saying earlier that like I don't know, but I will also give complete context. I traded Mark Andrews last year. I traded Mark Andrews, Christian Watson, and then a pick swap, a 2023 first-round pick swap and a third-round pick swap. So we swapped our first. I upgraded my first. I upgraded my third. And then pretty much it was Mark Andrews for Kyle Pitts. That's not looking great right now. And then Christian Watson for Chris Godwin. And Chris Godwin had a little bit of a bounce back year last year. And it's going to be interesting to see now that he's back in the slot in Tampa. Is he going to get back into being a little bit more Chris Godwin of the early years? So, but yes, right. I had to give a little bit of context of like, I don't know if I would sell Mark Andrews, but I've already sold Mark Andrews. So,
well, maybe that's a strong indication. It's like, yes, sell Mark Andrews, guys. Okay, so speaking of some moves or trades that you may or may not have made over this offseason, there was a player who was involved in some controversy, and that is Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice, who, if memory serves correctly, was like involved in a reckless driving incident in which he was going some like 100 miles an hour with his buddies in a racing down the Dallas freeway.
Is he a Georgia alumni?
Oh, no, SMU, but
okay.
Yeah, he definitely is. He definitely has that dog in him, shall we say?
Yes.
So
dog spelled DAWG. That's how they spell it there.
You know it. So Rashee Rice involved in this kind of reckless driving thing, and the reaction to that over the offseason was panic. A lot of people thought Rice is going to be suspended.
Yeah.
He's going to be kind of out for maybe the whole year, half the year, something heavy, right? And so the reaction from a lot of dynasty owners was, even though this guy had just kind of finished this ascending rookie season where it really looks like this could be Patrick Mahomes' main man,
yeah,
right? Then all of a sudden we have this huge question mark about his availability. And so that really prevents the rise of Rashee Rice kind of going in there. Now, I don't know who Kansas City has in their front office. I don't know what Kaiser Soze, what Michael Clayton guy
Black Magic
operates in there. Right. But they just have this way of making things just disappear.
Okay.
And by the way, if you are that Kansas City guy, call me. I've got some traffic tickets we try to work out. Anyway, so Rashee Rice is out there game one, just balling out. Okay. So let's dive into the numbers from last night, shall we? He got 103 yards. He got 9 targets from Patrick Mahomes, and he, by all accounts, is Patrick Mahomes, wide receiver one. Say it with me, people. Rashee Rice is Patrick Mahomes, wide receiver one. So if you did not veer widely off course, if you were the guy who did not speed to the waiver wire
Here we
to
go.
acquire his replacement or ship him off, if you were the guy who stayed firmly in your lane, you are rewarded. Rashee Rice. Now, the other thing, and the bigger question mark, is Xavier Worthy, right? We saw Xavier Worthy get not necessarily the same target volume, but boy, did he produce with his touches. Break down that game for me, Bobby.
No, definitely. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns. One was completely scripted. It's an end around complete design play from him. Like, while as a fantasy owner, you love that he got that 21-yard touchdown, especially a rushing touchdown. For some leagues that might have different points for passing, receiving, rushing. Rushing will always be 6 points in any league, no matter what. Yes, there's a little bit of my worry of, like, he had such few targets compared to Rashee Rice. But one of the things that you were mentioning earlier is that their routes, they had the same amount of routes ran. So it could be less of, hey, they're not really scripting him. He's not on the field that much. He's on the field just as much. Mahomes just needs to get more comfortable with him. So, but I will say, take this performance with a grain of salt, because his 2 touchdowns were a design play and a complete blown coverage. And if he does not target him, and like that end around doesn't work, and they actually cover him on another touchdown, like he maybe has like a 1 catch for a 15-yard day, and we're not talking about it. So it's definitely a little bit of like, hey, there's some notes to keep in mind there, but I'm not going too crazy with trying to get him. But also, like, this is Dynasty. Someone's drafted him, and they're not going to be trading him right off the bat. This is definitely like a keep an eye on it. If someone's trying to move him, they might have like receiver depth, and they've got other guys they want to keep, and Worthy's just not in the plans. But it's not like Likely. For me, Likely had the targets, the usage of those targets, definitely a more sustainable future, I feel like, where like Worthy seems a little bit more like this was just a lucky game.
I would say that when it comes to Worthy, what I'm really looking at is kind of, and I think what I was looking at going into this game was going to be really his usage and how, and I think routes run really less so than targets, right? How much are they actually putting the rook on the field was really going to be my question. I think also the other thing that I was looking for from Worthy, right, is we've seen Andy Reid invest in this particular style of receiver over the past couple of years. We've seen him make moves to kind of acquire players that look and feel like Xavier Worthy, Sky Moore.
They've been trying to
small
replace
body
Hill
type
for a long time.
Right, exactly, right? So it's like you're bringing in Sky Moore, speedy, short guy, really fast, right? Okay, that doesn't quite work out. We bring in Kadarius Toney. That doesn't quite work out, despite the talent, right? We saw, some bricks for hands in some of those games, right? And so the thing that I was looking for is Xavier Worthy going to buck that trend, or is he going to be this guy who just kind of mixes in like Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and can't really deliver on the promise? That was kind of a little bit of a concern with him, is like, the dude's 160 pounds. Is he really going to be able to beat guys off the line, How is he going to play? To me, I saw all of those kinds of concerns answered. This guy can play in the league. It's very clear he's an impact playmaker. What you're talking about with the touches and the targets and things like that, I think that's less of a concern for me. It's obviously like this guy's a week one player or a week one rookie starter. You know, how much are they? Not everybody's Puka Nacua where you're going to walk on the field and get 15 targets, right? You have to earn your way to those targets most of the time. And so from that aspect, I think what we saw from Xavier Worthy was a significant step forward into earning a larger target share. And not to mention, this opportunity is really created for him by the absence of Hollywood Brown, who was out with an injury tonight, or last night, rather. Sorry. And so the thing that I'm looking at when it comes to that is, okay, if Xavier Worthy doesn't produce, right, does he just get kind of phased back out of the game plan when Hollywood Brown comes back? Well, after 2 touchdowns, I think it's pretty safe to say this is a guy the Kansas City Chiefs are not going to be too eager to pull off the field.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see it's less that is he going to be challenging Rashee Rice, and it's more is he challenging Hollywood Brown. I could definitely see that. Like right now, Hollywood Brown hasn't done anything for you on the field, but Worthy already has. So that's definitely like, I feel like after that game, it's gonna be like, hey, listen, like there's definitely now tape now if he can be a weapon for us. It's going to be like, are we going to script more? What's going to happen if defense is actually, well, you have to start covering the guy. Well, is he going to produce in double teams? That's a little bit of kind of like, we'll see where it goes when teams actually start scheming him. But yeah, I think it's worse for Hollywood Brown than for Rashee Rice.
It is. I mean, I think if you're like the Hollywood Brown guy who was kind of sitting there going, okay, my guy just got traded to Kansas City. This is going to be a better situation than where he was in Arizona last year. Now he's going to be, this weapon for Mahomes. Well, I think you just saw a little bit of that go up in smoke. And I think if you are the person that sat there and put that draft pick into Xavier Worthy in your rookie draft, you're sitting there going, this is going to pay dividends, and it's going to pay dividends early.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, moving forward a little bit, when it comes to the quarterbacks, I think Mahomes was just Mahomes last night. Like, granted, he didn't have a lot of touchdowns and stuff, but Mahomes did what Mahomes always does. He puts his team in the right spot to win. He delivers the ball to the right people. I got to bring it up real quick because I remember this last night. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 different receiving targets, including himself. So, that was a question I was having a little bit when I was watching Lamar last night, is in that first half, it was only going to 3 people. It was like watching a guy in Madden of, I've got these 3 people I target, and that is it. Like, it's going to be Henry, it's going to be Isaiah Likely, and it's going to be Zay Flowers. And then that's what it was. And it was slowly becoming easy for those defenses to defend when Mahomes is spreading it out everywhere. Everybody was getting a taste of the ball in the offense. Now, from a fantasy perspective, hey, being the Isaiah Likely owner, you liked 9 catches, 111 yards. Hey, as the Zay Flowers owner, 6 catches, 37 yards, not bad. But I mean, for PPR or half point, full point, you got what you needed to survive a game. The crazy thing for me was also how much he delivered the ball to Justice Hill. 6 catches for Justice Hill.
I am looking. Yeah. If you are a Justice Hill owner or Justice Hill is available in a PPR league, let's think about this. The guy got 1 carry for 3 yards. He got 6 receptions, 8 targets.
He was the second leading
yards.
receiver.
So basically, if you're sitting there in a PPR league, Justice Hill got you 11 points. That's serviceable. I mean,
Yeah, no, definitely a bench piece.
Serviceable.
Like, oh, hey,
So
I'm on a bad bye week. And if this is what he's going to be in this offense, like, hey, listen, like, we understand that Derrick Henry is a complete one-dimensional running back. And we'll start transitioning a little bit into the running backs. Is if Derrick Henry's just going to be completely one-dimensional, he's not going to be a factor in the passing game, similar to what he was in Tennessee. Like, is Justice Hill really just going to carve out this route, this position of being like this third down receiver back and like be that? Because and right now the Chiefs did not have that. Like they were trying to do that a little bit with Pirine, kind of like they're kind of like tricking it a little bit of like, okay, he's coming in as like a third down passing person, and they kind of do these little screens to try to like, oh, he's a passing block. JK, we're doing a mini screen to him to try to make him that third down receiving back. But, you know, that if the Ravens are really trying to make him that, he could be a decent bench option in PPR leagues.
well, think about this. I am looking at the PPR scoring on Sleeper right now for Justice Hill versus Derrick Henry. Justice Hill outscored Derrick Henry last night in your PPR league on
and
Sleeper.
Okay. And Mark and Derrick Henry had a touchdown.
And exactly. And so let's talk about Henry for a second from a dynasty perspective, because I do think this was another story that we were kind of keeping an eye on going into this game, is this pairing of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. How is that going to really work, right? I think we saw that actually work in favor of Derrick and Lamar a little bit, especially early on in that game. Yeah. In that first drive, when you saw them doing that read option stuff, where that defense just has to barrel in down on Henry, and then Lamar can just kind of run around the end there, you know, that is opening up things for Lamar Jackson to have a day like he's got 16 carries for 122 yards as your quarterback. And we were talking a little bit, we'll get back to Henry in just a second, because I do want to talk a little bit about the quarterback thing that you were mentioning. Mahomes, right? While Mahomes we view as this big, huge, dynasty quarterback because he's got this huge contract, he's the biggest quarterback in football, right? When it comes to the fantasy perspective, not necessarily the number one quarterback you want. Because look at this day. Great day from Mahomes, wildly efficient, everything you would want out of your NFL quarterback. 20 of 28, a touchdown,
it was nearly
a pick,
300 yards,
even
too.
Game. What's up?
It was nearly 300 yards too, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Nearly 300 yards, right. But he's only getting you 16 points in fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Lamar Jackson maybe didn't have the quarterbacking day that you would want. And, we were talking a lot about like not going downfield as much, only kind of throwing this short stuff. But at the same time, he's rushing for 122 yards and he's putting up 25 points from your quarterback position, right? And so it's like in real life football, yeah, maybe I want Mahomes. And maybe in real life, as a Ravens fan, I'm watching that game going, oh my God, is this guy going to be able to get us over the hump in a Super Bowl? Is he going to be able to hit Zay Flowers in the clutch? Maybe not. But from your fantasy perspective, he's doing a lot for you. That's a quarterback you want. As a fantasy owner, as a dynasty owner, I'm looking at that going, I am happy. And a huge part of that is the presence of Derrick Henry, which opens up that game for Lamar. And that's why I think he's a huge ad. Now, from a dynasty perspective, you've probably, if you own Derrick Henry, you probably didn't buy him last year. You probably have been holding on to this guy for a while. And while people are watching that game, I'm telling you now, go to the waiver wire, or go out on not the waiver wire, go out on your trade block and start hitting up everyone who is a contender in your league. And just try to get, if you are not the contender and you have Derrick Henry, hit up the contenders. Try to get that late first round pick for him, because people are going to see he got a touchdown last night. He looked pretty good when he was running the football. And people aren't maybe going to think about the fact that he only got 10 points. Justice Hill outscored him. You know what I'm saying? Like, you watch the game, you see that back, and you're like, oh man, he could be a big part of this offense, blah, blah, blah. There's a touchdown. He looks good. The King's back. But there's a little more to this story. The guy looked slow and aging in his last days in Tennessee. And while there is going to be opportunity for him to produce in this offense, and a contender can probably benefit from having Derrick Henry as an RB2 on the roster, now just sell now, get what you can, build for the future if you are not looking at your team as a championship contender this year. So that's kind of the way that I see that. Now, going to another running back that I want to talk about real quick, Isaiah Pacheco. Talk about running backs that just, if you are the Pacheco owner, you got to be loving what you saw last night, because it doesn't look like there is any competition for him in that backfield so far as carries and touches go.
There's no competition.
Yeah, we saw him dominate 18 touches, 15 carries, 3 targets, 2 receptions for 33 yards and a touchdown. The Andy Reid running back is always a fantasy goldmine, and especially when that guy is the bell cow carrier. And for a while, there's always been this perception of Pacheco as not the bell cow, right?
Yeah.
Despite all the evidence that supports that, based on his usage, but we've seen him splitting time with Jerick McKinnon. We've seen Clyde Edwards-Helaire getting in the mix. And there's always been this perception of he's a 7th round pick. He's not the main man. He's just going to get factored out. Right, exactly. It's like he just is just this Band-Aid because there's always that Clyde got drafted in the 1st, Pacheco got drafted in the 7th. But now, look at the results on the field. Pacheco is the guy running people over in the Super Bowl, not Clyde. Okay. And Andy Reid, I think this year, what he said in this game is, I'm all in on Isaiah Pacheco this year. And if you are in Dynasty and there is, for whatever reason, any buy window on Isaiah Pacheco, go get him.
Yeah, his price is just going to go up, because the number one thing for me is, as the NFL has evolved more and more of, there is not a guy, there's not that singular guy anymore. There's only you can only count them on one hand, like maybe like C-Mac, like Rashad White was that for the Bucks, but like that's already kind of going away with Bucky Irving there. Like Xavier, with Isaiah Pacheco there, the only time Carson Steele was coming in was to give him a breather, and he crapped the bed every time he was on the field. So if anybody is challenging Isaiah Pacheco, they might be trying to do with Xavier Worthy what they did with Isaiah Pacheco. Of like, hey, you know what? We're going to actually try to give Worthy some halfback carries. Like, so that's the only thing I see getting in the way of him having more touches. Because it's not going to be Carson Steele. It's
not going to be Carson Steele. I could maybe see Pirine earning some more opportunities. He seems to be like this kind of guy who like really, he's your coach's favorite, right? He's the guy that just keeps seeming to earn his opportunities with the coaches wherever he goes, right? And he always seems to kind of factor in a little bit. So you could see Pirine maybe as he gets more ingrained with the Chiefs, earn some more run. But I just don't see them wanting to take Pacheco off the field, because he gives them such a, violent, capable running back. So
shifty too, very shifty.
Yeah, but he can be shifty, but he looks for contact, which is like, for his size is crazy, but he kind of has that like Maurice Jones-Drew factor where he's like really a power back, but he's tiny. So yeah, I'm really I'm really in on Pacheco, even though I don't have him in any of my leagues for the record. Like, I just
I
haven't
have
been
him in
able
a
to.
redraft somewhere. So
Yeah, I think like I might have him on a redraft team, but like in my dynasty leagues, I don't own any shares. And that's a bummer because I think he really has a lot of upside. And if you were able to get in on that, that is a player that I want to be in on. All right. I think that probably wraps us up for today, doesn't it?
yeah, I think we covered a decent amount. Yeah, I'm really interested to see, the Chiefs have the Bengals coming up, so that's gonna be another Mahomes versus another big quarterback. We are both Joe Burrow owners, so we are very familiar with Joe Burrow's awful starts. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that's like, I'll be interested to see, off topic a little bit. I want to see if Joe Burrow is not going to have an awful start finally.
I
Um,
mean, we have the quarterback known for awful starts coming off of a surgery that is unprecedented for a quarterback. So, you just got to love how the odds are stacking up for him there.
yeah. And I want to see the Ravens. I want to see primarily like for Derrick Henry and somebody, I want to see like, is likely going to produce again? Is Mark Andrews going to come out of the shadow? And I think one of the big issues with Henry was that team was playing behind by 10 points for most of the game. And that really, you watching the Titans a lot, us having Henry for a decent amount of time, like we know how ugly that script can get for Derrick Henry sometimes. So I would like to see the Ravens actually have a positive script for him, like that opening drive, because I think it really opens things up for Lamar. It really opens things up for Henry. And then it really opens that offense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I mean, I think the other thing that I'm looking for, and we didn't really talk about it too much, but the thing that I'm looking for is going to be moving forward for the Chiefs. How much is Noah Gray versus Travis Kelce going to be something that owners have to watch out for? I know a lot of Kelce owners were none too pleased with his
Boomer.
performance there, looking a bit like he's got a summer hangover from having a little fun on the Eras tour there. So
Taylor was there. Taylor was there.
yeah, I mean she was there supporting. There's a great meme I saw where it was like Taylor looking like she wants to get down there and dial up the plays for Travis,
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and yeah, by the way, I'm just saying, and call me a hater, but I think I'm gonna trust Andy Reid a little more than Taylor Swift with the playbook, but that's just me. That's just me. And that, by the way, has been the Dynasty Fantasy Football Show. If you liked what you heard, you thought this was fun, you thought this was good information, give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a shout out in the comments. If you thought this was bad information and you want to yell at us and tell us how terrible
Still
our
like,
takes is,
still subscribe.
right? Yeah, still subscribe. Get in on the haterade in the comments.
Allow
And
more people
tell
to
us.
see our bad ideas. Yeah, see?
No, man. No, man. Hey, listen. We've won some titles. We won some titles.
Yeah.
We'll just say that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that has been it for us today. Like I said, we will see you all down the road. Give us a follow on all the social medias at Dynasty FF Show. Bobby, let's get out of here.
See you guys.